Hi, I'm Rasheed Ogunlaru, coach, speaker and author, and I'm so delighted to be here with Tom and Nick Ray. Good to see you both. And we're in what looks like a kind of cinema theatre, and I guess one of the things that's quite exciting is that the film Starfish, which tells the story of your lives, has recently come out. It's your story of your journey through sepsis, and you're now sepsis advocates, as well as motivational speakers on that journey, and you've been on quite a journey. Where should we begin?
Well, it's been a long, long time. Our sepsis, or my sepsis, occurred in at the turn of the millennium. So it was a real strange time for us.
And for those who don't even know about sepsis, because again, that's one of the things that we try.
Yeah.
Tom, tell people what is sepsis.
An infection that occurs inside your body that will, through your bloodstream, attack your vital organs and shut them down one by one within about 12 hours, going through your body systematically to shut down the blood supply to your vital organs, and it will kill you that quickly.
Goodness. So had you, either of you, heard of sepsis before it happened?
Well, yeah, I mean, my dad had been a nurse in the RAF actually, so kind of septicemia, you know, when I was a kid we were kind of covered in TCP if, you know, if I had a cut or anything like that. So I had a kind of basic knowledge but didn't understand the kind of the ravages that the advanced kind of version,
Right.
you know.
And it's as simple as that is it about avoiding cuts and things like that can cause sepsis?
Yeah,
Is that basically?
I'd just been to the dentist early December 1999, got a little nick in my gum, and that's how I think the bug was introduced. And I was a really fit, healthy guy in my late 30s. Never had a day off in my life for anything, but it laid me low within half a day, and the symptoms present so similarly to flu and fever that certainly in those days the doctors and the A&E found it very hard to diagnose, and it is the kind of thing, unfortunately, that if you don't treat it with antibiotics within a day, you'll end up with serious consequences. Usually it ends in death, but in my situation it ended up with the amputation of my arms, my legs, and my face from my eyes downwards.
Goodness, and that the whole thing turned your lives upside down. Am I right? Had you just begun a family at that particular time, or you?
Yeah, our daughter Grace was nearly 3.
Yes.
And I was 9 months pregnant, expecting our second child, Freddie.
Yeah.
So Freddie was born about 4 weeks after Tom got ill. So the timing was not great.
Yeah, so I'm in a coma for 4 months, 5 months.
Yeah.
Wake up from the coma, I looked at this beautiful woman sitting by my bed, and I didn't even know who she was.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Sitting
remember
by your
anything.
bed with a baby.
With a baby, who's my son, and then she tells me we've also got a 2.5-year-old little girl at home, and that's where the recovery started, and it's been 17 years now.
Had you any memory throughout that whole experience of life before, or had everything just kind of cut out and you had to try and piece it back together, and with Nick telling you bits of the story?
It was completely like switching off the TV, December 1999, and waking up May 2000 into a different life.
Right. And can you recall now, or before, however you piece it together, life before that?
Yeah, I do remember. It took a while. When I first came out of the coma, I couldn't remember anything about my past life, but Nick filled in all the details, and I slowly reconstructed. And yes, it's all come back to me.
There are some patches, like Tom can't remember us getting married.
Right.
He's got no memory at all. He's got some created ones because he's seen photographs, but actually he's got no real memory of it. He doesn't remember Grace being born, so there is like 2 or 3 years just running up to when he got ill, which are very, very foggy. So
I mean, one thing that strikes me about it's funny. I saw the film before meeting you, and Pippa, who's kindly on camera, had introduced us, and I was just moved and touched by your humanity and your spirit, who it is that you are. I want to kind of fast forward a little bit, and then we'll maybe go back to today. Your advocates, your parents, the kids I think are grown up now, and you're still rebuilding your lives, and you're going out speaking and encouraging others. Tell us a little bit about life now and what the journey is that you're on now. And I'm sure we're going to go back into everything in between. But what's the journey about now? What's the film about? What's the work you're doing now as motivational speakers and encouraging others? What's all that about?
Well, we came from a creative industry. Nick was a filmmaker, video director, and I was a writer, helping to write some of the scripts. And so we had a lot of contacts in the film industry. One of them had graduated to making feature films and wanted to make the feature film of our story. And it seemed like an opportunity, that you couldn't turn down, because we were getting back into the kind of work that we loved, like being on a film set, painting scenery, working with actors.
So it sounds like you were really involved in that whole process of Starfish.
Yeah, and I was a body double for Tom Riley, who was playing me in the movie. So I was in some of the scenes, and it was a great experience. Also, it was on our local home patch in Rutland, which meant a lot to us, because the whole story had emanated from there, and it was good to keep it local. But also, it was a great opportunity to get the wider message about sepsis out into the world in a different way, in a creative way. And I often, we talk about the numbers affected by sepsis, and 44,000 men, women and children die every year. If you think about that number, that's incredible. That's
globally? Is that
that's
in the UK?
44,000
people.
Yeah, so it's a football stadium full of people every year. And if you think about the knock-on effect to husbands, wives, children, friends, it's enormous.
Oh, well, I want to touch on that.
So, just before you do,
yes.
What I was going to say was, when we had the opportunity to make Starfish, the film, it seemed like a really great opportunity to speak, not just for me and Nick and our family and what we've been through, but for those those thousands of people that don't have a voice, because they just disappear. They're gone.
So that's what a lot of the work is now. Is that
They nobody speaks for them, and so when I get to the chance, or Nick with Nick to go and talk to people, I always feel I kind of take a mental 30 seconds just to think, there are these people who didn't survive, and I survived, and I can say something for them, It's very important to me.
Yes.
Sorry, you were going to say something.
No, but I think that I'm struck by what you're saying. So there are those who didn't survive and saying something from those, but then there are those people. How many people do survive?
Oh, it's 150,000 a year.
Right.
Yeah, and a lot of them
contract it in the first place, or thereabouts.
Right.
The figures are actually probably, far greater than that.
And does very often it lead into what's happened in your life, the amputation, or
because what it does, it cuts off the blood supply to your hands and your feet.
Yes.
And your face.
Right.
Yes. And so they die.
Right.
What the doctor said to Nick in the film is true. His face is dying, and his hands and feet are dead. So they have to cut them off.
Yeah.
So
there is also a broader group of people will have something that's known as post-sepsis syndrome, which can last for several years, and it can be depression, tiredness, exhaustion, poor memory, you know, all of sorts of things that are kind of more invisible. They're not as visible as the kind of things that Tom's sort of contending with. But at the same time, they could be life-changing, because, you know, if you've had a life, you know, you've had a career, you've got a family, you're used to looking after your children, and then suddenly you're kind of extracted from that. But it's invisible, you know, nobody can actually see. It's a bit like something like ME, you know, it's very difficult to kind of get across the kind of impact and the power and the sort of seriousness of it. And there are thousands of people living with those sorts of symptoms.
I thought what was really powerful for me about the film, and we sat here in a cinema, is that somehow it managed to capture both stories and the family story. That for yourself, and having that experience and trying to just get everything back together, and your story of having to try and support, and I guess when anyone goes through something, we forget that there are all those different. I thought that compellingly told, and where you were both at different points. Did it take an incredibly long time to reconnect, to find yourself, and to reconnect, and to be able to support each other, and to be? Did it take a very, very long time to go through that whole process?
The first couple of years, you're kind of in crisis mode, so you're kind of dealing with the next, you know, the next emergency, and also you're kind of heavily medicalised. You're a professional patient. There's lots of, you know, health professionals involved with you. There suddenly comes that moment when you're on your own in your own house with your own partner, and I can just remember lying in bed that first night that Tom came home after a year in hospital, and thinking, I'm in bed with a stranger. He smells different. Everything about him is different. You know, how am I going to kind of bridge this gulf? How are we going to get back to where we were?
Yes.
And it took probably 4 years, I think, really to actually start to really confront the really huge issues. So we kind of got through the first 4 years just on adrenaline, and the fact that you've got 2 little children who need the next meal, you know, Tom needs the next bit of medication or whatever. So possibly after 4 years, I had a real major breakdown. I was suffering from PTSD, and Tom was too.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, and it was only at that point when I actually went and kind of asked my doctor for maybe a bit of support, because I thought that was a point where maybe I was ready to walk away, because it just seemed like we were on such different tracks. You know, it was so difficult to sustain the relationship, and it was actually the kids kind of brought us back again. You know, it was them rather than any kind of medical intervention, any drugs or anything like that. Maybe a bit of talking therapy, but it was mostly the fact that having to, you know, every morning you wake up and you've got 2 lovely, shiny, bright, bubbly kids wanting a meal, wanting to play, wanting to show you their drawing, wanting to show you what they've made with their Lego, you know, and you gradually just engage with them, and by keep on engaging with them, you think, I cannot let them down. I can't put them through all of this and then walk away from their father. How do I explain that to them? Not now, but 10 years time, 20 years time, when they go, Mum, for goodness sake, what were you talking? What were you doing?
Yes.
And I didn't have an answer, even though in that moment I was ready to leave, and I wasn't getting very much back. It was just kind of constantly asking myself that question that kind of got me through.
Yeah, and so Tom, for you, so I guess you're aware of lots of this, and you're going through your own physical, emotional, everything else agony, and you're aware of the kids. How was that stretch for you? I guess there's a long period of time where they're hospitalised and so on, then arriving home. I can imagine that must have been a very
it's a proverbial actual roller coaster. The only thing I wanted to do all the time when I was in hospital was to get home. But by the time I got home, it became clear to me that there were just as many problems at home than I had the domestic and family problems were just as complicated and difficult to overcome as the medical problems had been in hospital. I really don't know how we survived.
Oh, the light's gone off. So we'll pause the camera there, and then we'll get the lights.